Good afternoon. We'd like to welcome everyone for joining us today. Just a reminder, please turn off your cell phone or silence it. Today is August 13th, 2024. The Laughlin Town Advisory Board. Items on the agenda may be taken out of order. The board may combine 2 or more agenda items for consideration. The board may remove an item from the agenda or delay discussion relating to an item at any time. No action may be taken on any matter not listed on the posted agenda. All planning and zoning matters heard at this meeting are forwarded to the Board of County Commissioners Zoning Commission, the BCC, or Clark County Planning Commission, PC, for final action. Please turn off or mute all cell phones or other electronic devices. Please take all private conversations outside the room. With the 48-hour advance request, a sign language interpreter or other reasonable efforts to assist and accommodate persons with physical disabilities may be available by calling 702-455-3530 at 702-385-7486 or Relay Nevada toll-free at 800-326-6868. Supporting material provided to the board for this meeting may be requested from Tammy Harris at 702-298-0828. Supporting material is also available at the Clark County Department of Administrative Services. Supporting material will be available at the county's website at clarkcountynv.gov/LaughlinTab. We will go into roll call. Pam Walker.
Present.
Fred Doughton, he's excused. Kathy Oates.
Present.
Irvin Walker.
Sure.
And myself, Kathleen Haas. We have a quorum. Our secretary is Tammy Harris, 702-298-0828, or you can email her at tammy.harris, HARRIS, at clarkcountynv.gov. Our county liaison is Mark Moskowitz, 702-298-0828, or 702-455-6173. You can also email him at mark.moskowitz, MOSKOWITZ, at clarkcountynv.gov. If I could please ask you all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pam.
I pledge allegiance to
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, number 2, public comment. This is a period devoted to comments by the general public about items on this agenda. No discussion, action, or vote may be taken on this agenda item. You will be afforded the opportunity to speak on individual public hearing items at the time they are presented. If you wish to speak to the board about items within this jurisdiction, but not appearing on this agenda, you must wait to the comments by general public, period listed at the end of this agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Please step up to the speaker's podium. Clearly state your name and spell your last name. If any member of the board wishes to extend the length of your presentation, this will be done by the chairperson or board by a majority vote. We're going to combine to number 3 and number 4. So if I can please have a motion to accept the minutes of July 9th and the agenda for August 13th.
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, moving on. Informational items. We will receive a report of updates from our South County Liaison, Mark Moskowitz, on snow cone and a cup, Bennett Elementary School ribbon cutting, including the Laughlin Back to School Health and Wellness Fair on August 9th, hosted by Commissioner Naft, and any updates for Clark County.
Thank you, Chair. If you can bring up my PowerPoint presentation. So I want to first thank Metro and Renee for inviting our office to Snow Cone with a Cop. We had a great turnout. It's always fun to be involved in these events in the community. The next thing is we had the Bennett Elementary School ribbon cutting on Friday, August 9th. Principal Estes did a wonderful job. It was great to see Bob Bilbray there and his family doing a great job of talking about how much hard work they've done to bring a formal elementary school there. The building is incredible. It makes me want to go back to elementary school. I mean, they've got so many great things, so many interactive walls. It's a beautiful playground. It's built so nicely into the existing junior and senior high school. You wouldn't even notice it if you went there. They did it so well. So I just want to thank the community for showing up to that, and we had a really good turnout. And then following that, we had our health and wellness fair. Commissioner Naff hosted this. We had so many great partners there. We had UMC, we had a dental screening, we had Vision, Red Cross. I want to thank Tammy from our office for helping with the check-in table. So many great services. People are leaving with full booster seats that are worth hundreds of dollars. So it was really, really well done. What's so awesome is this was the dental van that was out front, and they did about 15 full services that day, which is incredible. And it was either low cost or free, and I was blown away. It was a full dental van with a dentist and everything in there. So we're going to continue to coordinate with them to bring more of the dental van programs to the community. So it was a great kickoff of that. This information I actually just got probably 10 minutes before the meeting. This is regarding the residential roads rehab project, areas 4 and 5. So it includes 5 neighborhoods as well as El Mirage and James A. Bilbray. The project had taken a brief pause just because of the summer heat, out of abundance of caution for the workers to make sure we didn't have any medical issues or anything like that. However, it's going to start back up on September 9th, and crews will begin milling and repaving roads in the neighborhood. The working hours will remain the same from 7 a.m. to 3:30 from Monday through Friday, and the contractor will make sure that access to private residences will be able to get to them. And as we always say, they put those little door hangers to notify people before. So just be cautious with your neighbors. If we have windy days here, if you see one and then it blows away, just make sure you kind of let your neighbors know so we don't get people stuck in their areas. As always, you can contact our office, and we're more than happy to coordinate with what's going on. So that's some good news. Also, I want to mention, I mentioned this last month, I know we're still in the heat of summer. We have our cooling stations. Please, if anyone in the community needs those when it's hot, I know Pam and Kathleen work heavily with the Legion, so they're always there to offer a place for our community to cool down. So please don't feel like you need to be in the heat. And then the last thing is, as always, we have Commissioner Naff's newsletters in the back. It's got a lot of good information with back to schools started up, so just make sure you're always leaving maybe a few minutes early and obey no U-turns and all the school zone signs. So with that, those are my updates.
Thank you. Okay, number 2.
So,
Representative-
Yep, that one's for me. So I want to present a proclamation to Matt Laughlin and his family. August 2nd was the 58th anniversary when Don and Betty Laughlin and their family opened the 8-room motel, casino, and cafe on the western shore of the Colorado River. And on August 2nd, Commissioner Naff and the 6 other commissioners wanted to declare August 2nd as Don Laughlin Day. So as we all know, Don Laughlin was a huge visionary for this community, for this area. We wouldn't be here today without Don Laughlin and his idea. So he's been a huge instrumental part in creating this community, about 9,000 people today. So I'd like to welcome up Matt Laughlin and his family. Thank you, Matt.
What a great honor. Okay, number 3. Receive a report from Lieutenant Rogers with Metro Police.
All right, welcome. Thanks for having me today. I'll go over the stats first because that's usually the most boring part of anything I need to talk about, and then we can go over the fun stuff. So for the month of July 2024, we handled 324 calls for service, up a little bit from last year, which was a 309, so not a huge change. As a totality for the Laughlin area, we wrote 138 traffic citations, which is pretty normal. 3 DUI arrests, 1 arrest for an adult for domestic violence. Our Tucker holding facility here took in a total of 12 bookings, and we did have 1 juvenile arrest, which is obviously taken to Vegas because we don't handle those here. And then for July, we just had 1 call for service at the high school, totaling 14 for the year. Any questions on the stats for July? All right, perfect. Just like Mark was saying, we've had a lot of community events. Our snow cone event was awesome. We had the back to school fair. So I just want to thank Donna Kelly and her staff for donating backpacks and supplies to the kids that we were able to pass out. The LVMPD Foundation is also having another influx of backpacks to donate. So we're just getting with Principal Estes on kind of a need-based thing. So it won't be like a big public event. It'll just be need-based, so we're just going to meet with the principal and kind of do that behind the scenes. So we do have more backpacks coming in. So if you do know of a kid specifically that needs school supplies or a backpack, let us know, send me an email or call me. If not, then just I'm sure the principal's aware of it, but that's kind of our next give back event. Tomorrow, we're doing our monthly Coffee with a Cop. It'll be at Bruce's Taste of Chicago. At 11 a.m., so tomorrow at 11 a.m. If you're not familiar with the address, it's 1955 West Casino Drive. So come by, myself, some of my officers, detectives will be there. It's a good way to have a face-to-face conversation with a police officer on a very casual setting. So if you have something that you want to discuss or something that you want to improve quality for your neighborhood or whatever, then we try to do these at least once a month, and we're always looking for different locations to do it. So we haven't done one here before, so we figured Bruce's Taste of Chicago was kind of a new, unique place to try it at this month. So hopefully we see everyone there tomorrow, 11 a.m. I know it's over a month away, but since we have a special guest at this one, I want to give everyone as much notice as possible. Our September Coffee with a Cop will be on September 11th at 11 a.m., and that will be at the Laughlin Senior Center. And the reason I bring that one up is we do have a guest speaker coming from the Alzheimer's Association. So besides myself and detectives that are there, I think it'll be a good guest speaker to have at the Senior Center. So if anybody has any sort of questions related to Alzheimer's care or what that looks like for your family or anything like that, they will be there that day. So that's well over a month away, so we're hoping to have a really good turnout. We normally do at the Senior Center. We usually have a pretty good turnout, but with a month notice, if anybody has any direct Alzheimer's related questions, we hope to see them there that day. So that's September 11th, 11 a.m. And then last but not least, our National Night Out, which is usually our biggest event here in Laughlin. Because the October 1st anniversary, it's actually gonna be the second week in October this year. So it'll be on Wednesday, October 9th. It's kind of a save the date. You know, due to a gracious donation from one of my former sergeants, Gino Briscoe, you know, and not to let the cat out of the bag, but we may have a petting zoo with some baby goats there. So, as I say, anything in life, baby goats makes it better. So hopefully we see everybody out. Same park as usual. We'll do the same shuttle service we've done before. If parking gets really busy there, really full, really quick, you can park at the market, and then we'll have Silver Rider offering free shuttles back and forth. So we want to make sure a lot of people, a lot of residents utilize the free shuttle. So that's kind of, it's a great service, and it's running back and forth, so it's not a long wait as opposed to there's just not enough parking for everybody. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Any questions,
Thank you. Any questions?
comments, concerns? Cool. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep, have a great day.
Okay, next we will receive a report from Clark County Fire Department.
And we can kind of sort of share too.
Yeah, we can share.
We can do two by
Thank
twos.
That's okay.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Debbie's got it.
That's right.
This is what we do as firefighters. We recognize.
You're just attracted to the water.
Well, that was an outstanding start. Hi, my name's Tony Quintello. I am a captain over at Clark County Fire Station 76, right across the lot here. I am one of 3 station captains. We have 3 platoons, A, B, and C. I am a B platoon captain. We have a variety of apparatus in our station. We have 6 personnel. Thank you. We have a fire engine, a fire truck. We have a watercraft with a pump and the means to extinguish fire on that boat. We have a UTV, which is capable of accessing patients in remote areas in the desert. What else? We also have a rescue, which is an ambulance, 2-person transport capable rescue unit. I'll just give you the report for the numbers of our runs for July of 2024. Engine 76 ran 21 EMS calls in July. It ran 15 fire-related calls in July. 4th of July was a pretty busy, significant night for us. Engine 76 ran 14 other types of responses in July. That's a 100% change from July of 2023. The fire calls were up 1,400% from July of 2023. EMS calls, no change from July of 2023. When I speak of other calls, a significant type of other call that we would run in Laughlin is elevator rescues. The elevators have a tendency to not want to work here a lot, so if you get an opportunity to take the stairs, I would recommend it. Good exercise. Our rescue, our 2-person transport capable unit, ran 95 emergency response calls, EMS related calls in July of 2024, which is down 37% from last year, which is a good thing. Fire calls, they were part of 4 fire responses. We'll use their personnel in a firefighting capacity, or also to transport a patient or a firefighter who would be in need. 0 other calls. Truck 76, which is our apparatus with the large 75-foot aerial ladder on top of it, which has a different set of capabilities, but we do cross-man that. We'll operate off of both the engine or the truck, depending on the nature of the call. That ran 8 EMS calls in July. It ran 1 fire call in July, and it ran 10 other types of calls in July. We do have another station. Station 85 is up in the residential area of Laughlin, off of Needles and James Bilbray. That ran 8 EMS calls in July. It ran 1 fire call in July, and it ran 1 other type of call in July. I'm sorry, wrong numbers. EMS calls, it ran 54 EMS calls in July. Ran 13 fire calls in July, ran 5 others in July. Watercraft 85, so we have 2 jet skis, which are capable to respond on the river or the lake, need be. I had 1 response, 1 EMS response in July. Totals, Station 76 ran 159 total calls in July. Station 85 ran 73 total calls in July. Any questions from anyone about any of that?
So you're, you're placing the watercraft in the other under WC 85? Is that correct? The new watercraft jet ski that we have?
So we have a big new boat.
Correct,
over here.
that as well. That's where I was wondering where you were putting those in.
So that would be under Station 76, under WC 76. That's
Okay.
Watercraft 76.
Watercraft, C, okay, got it.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the other one is the jet
And
ski.
then the jet skis, the 2 jet skis are over at Station 85.
Okay.
And we took possession of those probably a year or so ago.
Right, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I didn't know if there was something from the public.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, you need to step up to the podium and
State your name and
Sorry.
address, but. It's a public forum, sir, we're recorded, so we do have to have that for our secretary. She takes minutes on this, so it just helps her.
Thank you.
Sure, my name's Daniel Glass, Glass, and I was just curious on, out of the calls, where are most of them generated?
Well, for us at Station 76, most of them are going to be on the casino corridor right here, off of Casino, obviously. And I would say that our calls run 50-50 medical calls for service, and the other 50% are probably elevator-type responses. And then somewhere in there, we run calls for service on the river, traffic accidents, trailer fires, semi-fires, vehicle fires. There's a pretty significant amount of our calls. I apologize. Forgot to introduce my boss back there, Battalion 13 Chief Ty Frainer. He did remind me of a pretty significant fire that we had recently. Go ahead, sir.
So pretty much you're telling most of them are generated at the casinos?
For us, for Station 85, 85 is primarily residential.
Correct. So for clarification for the constituents' purpose, calls that are coming from 76, Station 76 are predominantly on the Strip and water, and 85 would be the residential. Am I correct in that? Would that be accurate?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, the departments where they're located, I understand that. I saw a house across the street from my house burned down totally. So I'm just kind of curious, your response times, and where most of your calls are generated, that our taxpayers are paying for the casinos, for the citizens there, that are mainly visitors in our town.
We do provide that service to the visitors as well. It's not to say that we don't respond to the residential area up in 85's area, or vice versa. 85 will come down here, depending on if our apparatus, our personnel are tied up on an EMS call down here, they may have to respond down there, or likewise. On June 27th, we did have a significant fire on the banks of the Colorado River. Came in as a brush and grass fire. We responded, found a significant amount of fire. It was a windy day, so it was a wind-driven fire. It was spreading rapidly. We were able to deploy our new boat and utilize the deck gun and the pump to apply water and extinguish the fire from the river. So that was a... it was probably more than likely started by a homeless gentleman living under the bridge who claimed credit for it. Can't be 100% certain that that's how it started, but he did claim that he accidentally started the fire. But the boat, our new boat, worked outstanding that day. So it's going to be a huge asset to the community and a good asset for the department. Any more questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to receiver report for Jimmy Liners with the Bureau of Land Management regarding the Kia National Monument, the Kia Kwaya.
Hello, thanks for having me. Name's Jimmy Linares. I'm with, probably a little too close, aren't I? Outdoor recreation plan for the BLM and for Avico May National Monument. With me today is Bruce Lito. He's our field manager for the Las Vegas field office that oversees the monument. For those who aren't familiar, the monument largely encompasses the Paiute and El Dorado Valley near the side of the mountain, but also extends over into Laughlin, the west side of Laughlin, which covers Hyco Spring and Granite Spring on the California border. So just a couple updates. Just want to remind folks that Walking Box Ranches continues to be closed to the public. However, we do have a partnership with the Friends of Avico May, and they do offer monthly volunteer projects and tours of the ranch. So you have to register with them for those tours, but they are available to the public once those become available on those dates, usually the first Saturday of every month. I also want to announce that we will be having National Public Lands Day at Weethump. Weethump is in the monument. It's about 6 miles west of Searchlight. It's a wilderness area, and we'll be doing a lot of the work is essentially restoration of some campsites and parking areas that have just kind of grown over time. So we just got to get a little handle on that. So we'll be building some posts. Invite everybody to come over. Walking Box Ranch will be open that day. So if you don't want to do work, you can come to the ranch and hang out and get a tour of the grounds or maybe even the house. Again, those registrations will go through our Friends of Avico May group. So you can literally just look them up, Google Friends of Avico May, they'll come up and they'll have a registration there for National Public Lands Day. And again, that'll be October 5th. Also want to announce that we are working on partnerships and agreements. The proclamation that designated the monument directed the BLM to develop agreements with interested tribes, partner groups, and also with the Park Service, who also manages about 80,000 acres within the monument. So far, we've completed one agreement with the Friends of Avico May. So they're a partner group. They're helping us do a lot of the work on the monument in terms of restoration and public outreach and education. We are currently working with the Park Service to develop a co-management agreement. It is really early preliminary phases or stages of that, but it is getting some progress. And then as far as co-stewardship agreements with the tribes, we've gotten some interest from Fort Mojave, the Colorado Indian tribes, and some of the Las Vegas tribes, Paiute tribes that would like to enter some of those agreements. Unfortunately, that process does take a while, so it may be maybe a year out before we see that happen. But nevertheless, at the end of the day, what that does is allows the tribes to have a voice in the way in which we manage the monument going forward. Announcement about monument staffing. I'm currently the only employee for the monument, but hopefully here soon, in about 10 or 12 days, our monument manager will come on. So we'll have an actual manager, and then following that, we'll have a tribal liaison also, hopefully on board by the end of the year, which will allow us to interact and engage with the tribes a little more productively and quicker. And then, biggest thing I wanted to come and talk about was the Monument Advisory Council, or committee, excuse me, the notification for applications or to apply for to participate in those advisory committee or to be a board member. Those opened up earlier this month. They will close at the end of the month. Now, the Monument Advisory Committee, what they do is essentially they'll meet anywhere between 2 and 4 times a year, and they provide essentially just that advice to how to manage the monument. It is a larger scale sort of position where you, instead of doing the day-to-day sort of implementation level projects, it's the larger R&P, so resource management planning, recreation management planning, all those kind of things. So really important position. And I will go down really quickly in terms of the types of positions that we're looking for, the types of participants we're looking for. The proclamation does direct us to have a majority of tribal members in the advisory committee. Total of 15 seats, 8 of them will go to tribal members. The rest will be predominantly folks with experience or some kind of involvement in outdoor recreation activities, dispersed recreational activities, hunting, wildlife organizations, conservation organizations, scientific community members, local business owners, local government. That includes Clark County, that can include state, and then any one position for a local citizen. These positions do overlap in many ways, so folks could theoretically fit one or two of these or more of these categories of folks. And really, part of the reason I'm here is I think it'd be really helpful for you folks being neighbors to the monument to consider somebody who might be interested in that position, nominate them for that position. The nomination process is fairly simple. You submit a resume with relevant experience you might have. You'd submit it to us, to the BLM, specifically to Kirsten Cannon. All this information can be found on the BLM website for Abikome. But you'd submit the resume along with some letters of support from community members, your supervisors, managers, and then we'll vet those through. In fact, we don't vet them locally. The Secretary of Interior vets them directly, and then she'll nominate those folks. But like I said, 15 total members, one of them being local government persons or people. So, and I think that's really all I got today. Any questions for me?
Any questions?
No.
All right.
Yep. Thank you.
very much. Okay, number 6, receive a report from Jason Bailey with Big Bend Water District regarding the status of the water system.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Jason Bailey with the Big Bend Water District. Joined here with staff today from the Water District. Doa Ross is our Deputy General Manager of Engineering, and Bronson Mack and Dave Wainert from Public Information. Just wanted to give an update on water use. For the month of July, total diversions for the river were 308 acre feet. As you can see, the year-to-date for 2024 is 1,765 acre feet, slightly up from the same time last year. As far as development inquiries, no new inquiries since last meeting. And as for a financial update, for the fiscal year-to-date through June 30th, 2024, the Big Bend Water District had an operating surplus of a little more than $160,000. So after including capital expenditures and debt service payments, that debt balance increased a little more than $133,000. Again, I just wanted to note that this is through June 30th, which is the end of the fiscal year. These are preliminary numbers. The audit is still ongoing, and final numbers are subject to change. As we've done in the past, once the annual report is final, we'll post that on our website, and I'll also make sure that you all get a copy of that. And then just as a last item, for funding for the Water Resources Development Act, as discussed last month, that funding was approved by the House of Representatives, and it has been received by Senate, but we have no timeline on any decisions there.
No timeline?
No timeline from the Senate, no.
Those are the WRDA funds?
Those are the WRDA funds, yes. And that is my report. Any questions?
Any questions?
Just curious, will they be requesting a timeline at sometime soon from the WRDA?
So
program?
my understanding is the Senate at some point adjourned, and then we'll come back together and meet, and at that point we might have a better idea on timing.
Is that something you wouldn't mind updating this board on?
Sure.
Okay,
Will do.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
You're like me, I'm all looking at this and confused.
Receive a report from Will Smith with Clark County Water Reclamation.
Now it's his turn.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, advisory board members. Will Smith, SMITH, Clark County Water Reclamation District.
Can you get a little closer to the mic? I must be really hard of hearing today, but thank you.
I was just right here. Here to give my report, my statistics for July 2024. The Laughlin Water Reclamation Center treated an average of 1.89 million gallons per day, producing clean water returned to the Colorado River. July 23rd, this time, we had an average of 1.96 million gallons a day. That's a flow decrease by 70,000 gallons per day from last year at this time. Sewer service complaints from the community, we had none. Odor complaints from the community, we had none. We had 15 call before you dig tickets for Laughlin. And our influent flow comparison chart is attached to the report. And that's my report for this afternoon. Are there any questions?
I'm just curious, and I don't know the inner workings of the Water Reclamation District,
Yes, ma'am.
but a lot of organizations that I belong to, they do monthly financials. For 24 years, you guys have reported on, the use of the water and what you're treating and stuff, as well as the Big Bend. I'm curious, would there be, your information is public, I'm assuming your financials.
Yes.
And are those generated on a monthly basis?
From my understanding, they are.
Is that something you wouldn't mind including in the reports that you give to
I
us?
can
Is
look
the
into it.
financial, not for the entire Water Reclamation District, but for that which pertains to Laughlin?
Yes, ma'am, I can look into that.
Because I'm just curious if we're going to be seeing any type of rate increases that are going to be coming, at the start of the year. I'd like to, get some financial information, as well as, if Jason's still here, as with the Water District, that which pertains to Laughlin. Because, like I said, for 24 years, we've gotten these reports of what our water treatment is, but nothing from the financial side. And I think it behooves us as this board to kind of have an idea that the financial health of the organizations that administrate our infrastructure and how they're functioning and how soundly they're functioning.
Yes, ma'am, we can work on that to have that for your next meeting.
Please,
All right,
thank you.
Thank you. Any other
Thank you.
questions?
Any other questions? No. Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, have a good day.
Receive a report from Kelly Lohr from Southern Clark County Coordinator for UNR.
All right, Kelly Lehr, L-E-H-R, UNR Extension. We finished our summer garden-themed class in Lego Robotics on July 25th at the Clark County Library. For our fall curriculum, Devin, who is my community-based instructor, will begin a Tuesday afternoon garden class for all ages on September 10th at the library beginning at 11. And she's also working in some 4-H curriculum at Bennett Elementary School with the second grade classes beginning on September 12th. And she's coordinating that with Dr. Dietz, who will be a second grade teacher this year. And Thursdays, we will continue our programming at the Boys and Girls Club, and they wanted to begin baking and cake decorating as their curriculum. I think they like to eat it, but we're gonna try and decorate as well. So we start that on Thursday, the 12th. And then Devin is also offering an outdoor Nevada program. She's going to try and run these on days where Clark County School District has their teacher in services. So beginning on September 16th, the group's first field trip will be exploring Grapevine Canyon, and more information will follow. She's going to do pre-registration because there might be some kids from Searchlight as well that might need some transportation. The University of Reno Extension Horticulture Department is working with Metro again at the high school in the hydroponics, and that'll begin in September. And I'm also hoping to work with the Chamber and Interact and Rotary on a teen leadership group this fall that focuses on career development and preparation of resumes, interview techniques, and civic engagement. We might have to hit up the fire department and the police department and have them come be guest speakers at some point. Keep that in mind, gentlemen. And Devin attended the health fair and the open house last week, also at Searchlight as well as Laughlin, to assist Clark County with their back to school needs. We had a UNR Extension health and nutrition specialist in attendance for the students and the families. And so we're gonna try and coordinate and collaborate with that group from UNR Extension as often as we can, because those health fairs are pretty important. Devin and I are attending a first robotics orientation next week to see if we can get some young people interested and involved in a robotics program that would ultimately build and code and create a robot for this year's underwater theme. That's what it is this year. They change every year. The thought is that all the outlying Southern Nevada townships could compete with one another throughout the year. We're seeking interested teens as well as volunteers to mentor this group and attend a Saturday kickoff workshop on September 21st, but it's in Las Vegas, so it's a little hard to get to. So once again, if there are people that are interested, we will help with the transportation. We are also contributing to our National Public Lands Day at Pyramid Canyon next month, and that is the end of September, not October, which was the confusion on the dates there with Aviquame. We will partner with the National Park Service to host a seed ball table. which will ultimately help the butterfly population flourish by providing native pollinators through the parks and neighborhoods of Laughlin. And we're going to coordinate with the National Park Service and Anna on that. I continue to keep an open line of communication with the school district and county with regards to the programming that was brought up 2 months ago, I think, about sports activities and camps and clinics that some of the parents were interested in. And my administrator made it perfectly clear that that's not our primary programming focus, to implement sports in the region. And my background is that I was the sports coordinator for the city of Boulder City. So that's not something that I can give up altogether. So I would consider assisting with the issue, with issuing some type of partnership or implementation of ideas. And I reached out to Clark County Schools with the new addition and the start of the new school year. I haven't received a response, and obviously because it's the second day of school. So they have bigger things, bigger issues. I can tell you that our main problem is going to be facility use. When the weather changes, we can revisit some ideas of working some things out in the park. And I would love the idea of hosting clinics and collaborating with Alon's programming and some of the high school coaches' ideas on youth camps. And I think that's how we're going to start here in Laughlin, is to get the kids interested and excited about different sports and see exactly where they want to go with that. We can't spearhead it. UNR Extension cannot, but we certainly would be willing to assist with the effort, because just like the Bureau of Land Management, it's just Devin and I down here. So we rely heavily on volunteers through 4-H and through UNR Extension. So our manpower is going to be hard to tackle this problem. I know Alon struggles with this as well. Parks and Recreation typically relies solely on their parental support to coach teams and youth teams, and UNR Extension and 4-H programming, we also rely heavily on adult volunteer database, which we are very thin on down in Laughlin. So it's just something to consider, is that you want to make something successful, but you're relying on people who would like to watch from a distance, but not necessarily want to get their hands involved. So it would have to be limited, which is why I was thinking the clinics would be a good way to go, and to kind of rope in the coaches. I also had a thank you note from one of my junior high students that attended Camp Alamo with the help of money that was donated several years ago to UNR Extension. For that sole purpose, was so that kids could go to camp. And he was my one taker that went. Camp Alamo's in the Pahranagat Valley. And he had sent a thank you. He had the time of his life. He said the bus ride was one of the most awkward things he's ever experienced. It was a bunch of kids who didn't know each other. And by the time he came back, I was the one who drove him back. I could not get the kid off the campus and off the bus. He was just thrilled to meet all these new friends. He loved especially archery, the rock climbing wall, and stargazing. He said he just couldn't believe there were that many stars, because you can see them. It's just phenomenally dark out there, and he thought that was really exciting. And he made a lot of new friends, and he's going to try and encourage people to go next year. So I was really excited to share that with you, because that's only one, but if he can get the word out, more kids will go. It's just an experience I think every kid should experience, especially in Laughlin. The biggest concern is transportation, and I got him there to the bus, and I brought him back, and I'd be willing to do it again. Any questions for me?
Nope, no
Thank you.
questions.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll receive a report from Parks and Recs. No today. Okay, let's receive a report from Carrie Larson with the Laughlin Chamber.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Board. Well, it's been a calm summer, which I have needed.
Don't start it.
Right? We're going to be ramping up coming into fall, and things are going to get crazy, and I'm starting to get excited because we're starting to make those plans. But first off, we have a past ribbon cutting. The Bennett Elementary ribbon cutting was a spectacular day, and it's always wonderful to see the district and the county put that investment into our local education. So it was my pleasure to attend there, and they gave a nice gift of a book called Together We're Better, or Together is Better, and I've already been introducing that to my staff, so that's been neat to do. As far as networking and education, we have Toastmasters International at the Chamber every second and fourth Tuesday. The time has changed. It was at 4:30. It is now going to be at 5 o'clock. That will better accommodate some of our teachers that are in the program. And so tonight at the Chamber, the 13th, and then the 27th. We're going to have a business breakfast with Risen Star Kennel. David's going to come over and he's going to talk about the human-dog evolution and their relationship, how that's changed over time. That will be August 30th at 8:30. We're going to have a business roundtable on healthcare September 4th at noon, and that's going to be Recruiting a Reliable Team by Mandy Day from Valley View Medical Center and Starting a Practice from Donna Kelly at Laughlin Community Health Center. These business roundtables are very topic specific, so keep an eye out for one that may apply to your business. We are going to have a mixer September 26th. It is going to be a progressive happy hour hosted by Laughlin River Lodge. So we're going to jaunt through all their different casinos and get snack samples and drink samples. And then we'll end up downstairs in what was their old banquet room / bingo hall for a couple of free cocktails and some drawings. So that's going to be a good time. I want everyone to save the date. December 10th. December 10th, we are going to have what's not going to be a mixer, but Matt and the Riverside team has been gracious enough to host our Christmas party. It's going to be a surprise, but I promise we're going to blow the roof off that place, so it's going to be a lot of fun. December 10th. We have the 27th Annual Community Achievement Awards coming up November 2nd. What's most important is that we need you all to submit nominations right now. Those are going to close August 19th. Especially people who want to recognize veterans. We need some veterans nominations for the veterans category. And don't forget there is a new category, the youth organization category. So that's your little leagues, any sort of club for kids. It could be Interact or anything. We think it would be just amazing to see a group of kids win an award and see all the screaming and yelling, and that's going to be fun. So please put your nominations. They close August 19th. As far as membership goes, Q2 results, we had 2 new members this quarter. None were from Laughlin yet. We have 321 total members, 33% are from Laughlin, and our total new members year to date are 54. That is the largest number of new membership that I can find anywhere in our electronic records. So I've been really, really proud of the team. And as always, there is a $500 credit for radio advertising with Murphy Broadcasting for every new member that pays for their full year up front when they join. So that is available. VIPs, we're still accepting VIP applications. Their next meeting will be sometime in September. So you can come down to the chamber and apply for that, and you may have the opportunity to work the Jason Aldean concert on September 21st. Notary services, if I could remind everyone to please call for an appointment. Claudia does have a lot of appointments, and walk-ins are very, very difficult for her, so please call. The NDOT directional road signs and the bridge naming, the Laughlin family approved naming the bridge the Donald J. Laughlin Memorial Bridge. And Assemblywoman Gallant is going to be submitting that name and some language in as a bill draft request to the legislature, and Commissioner Naft has been gracious enough to support the submittal. Again, reminding you about that Section 368 energy corridor. We expect comments to come open October, November, and That is my big flashing red light, caution, caution. We're going to be taking all that land offline, and I think that we should really take a deep look at that. Laughlin Labyrinths, call Jackie. That is it for my reports. Does anyone have any questions?
No,
Great, thank you.
thank you.
Oh, and I have flyers. I'll put them there.
Okay. Next, we will receive a report from Jackie Wallen.
She's not here. I didn't see her today.
Oh, Jackie.
She's on vacation.
Ah,
Oh, how about Tanya Brown with the library? Okay. And no school. Okay, announcements of upcoming neighborhood meetings and county and community meetings and events.
None at this time.
Thank you. Okay, we have no planning and zoning today, which brings us to our general business. Consider issuing a letter of support to the Board of Clark County Commissioners supporting a loan from the Fort Mojave Development Fund to the Big Bend Water District for the construction of the water storage tanks.
Perfect, thank you, Chair. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna do a quick presentation, and then I will have Doa Ross with the Big Bend Water District will also go to the podium to answer questions. We'll first open to questions from the board, and then after that, we'll open it to questions to the general public. Please remember to state your name and address, and we'll have a 3-minute timer. And then after that, what we're gonna have is Big Ben will kind of be taking notes as well as myself, and then we'll come back and we'll answer those questions. And then we can also have follow-up after that if it feels like some questions weren't answered. I think that's probably the best way to do it, to be respectful of everyone's time, and instead of having the back and forth. So I think we're gonna go forward with that. So if you'll bring up my presentation, I'll get started. So this is the Fort Mojave. Today we're speaking about the Fort Mojave Development Fund and using funds to provide a loan to Big Bend Water District to construct a 2 million gallon tank to help bring us up to compliance with the state, help with flow levels and fire response. So Senate Bill 301 transfer the Fort Mojave Development Fund, and generally the Fort Mojave Development Fund is to use for development within the Fort Mojave Valley. So that's kind of what that outlines of what the uses are, that you can go through it. And then the Big Bend Water District is a general improvement district created in 1983 under Nevada revised statute to supply water to Laughlin residents and businesses. So those are the two items we're talking about today, with the county's Fort Mojave Development Fund potentially if there's a letter of support to provide money to Big Bend Water District. And the district has the authority to pledge connection fees to repayment of borrowing. So I'll go to the next slide. So currently the Fort Mojave Development Fund has $13.9 million. Annually, and this is from the solar farm, it gets about $800,000. And on top of that, from interest is about $200,000. So roughly about $1 million every year comes into the Fort Mojave Development Fund. So what we're talking about today would be a 2 million gallon tank to allow 625 acres of development, or equivalent to 3,750 units. The new connection fees, which would come from this loan, is that when new development comes in, because they would pay roughly about $3,000 per equivalent unit, and that's going to be kind of with an annual CPI escalator. So there'll be interest on that as well. And Doa will be able to speak more in depth on those questions with the Big Bend. But design and construction for the tank will be 18 to 24 months. And development, which is very interesting, will be able to move forward while the project is in process. And what Big Bend Water District has shared with me is that currently the Big Bend Water District is grandfathered in for their current capacity. So right now, if there's an emergency, there's about 6 to 10 hours of water. This tank would add an additional, would make it to 18 to 20 hours. The state needs you to be much higher, but we've been grandfathered in where they're okay with our current system. Our current system works okay, but to expand our system and have more development, you need to be able to have more reliable system that has a longer return time of if something goes down. So, and we have to remember that Big Bend will come from Las Vegas Valley Water District, which is about an hour and a half away. So ultimately right there, that's 6 to 10, you've already taken off an hour and a half just to get down here. So just a thought. And then current development initiatives would generate more than 2 million. So as Jason reports on a development that comes forward, Big Bend has taken those numbers and kind of roughly, this isn't in stone, roughly figured out what money would be able to be paid back to the loan initially from new development. Now, there is a risk that if development doesn't occur, then the fund would not be able to be paid back. So there is risk with it. So here are the proposed loan terms. So the loan is not to exceed 11 million. It would be the current market interest borrowing rate with up to a 30-year term, and payments will be made by future developments. So what that is essentially development is still paying for development by connection fees. So that is gonna bring in money that's coming back to pay off this loan from Big Bend to pay. And then any federal appropriations will be used to offset the project costs to the extent allowable. So I know we've spoken about the WARDA funding. That is more or less little chunks of money that will come through. However, that hasn't been approved by the Senate or the president yet. And I would say we're about maybe 2 years away until maybe anything would start to really trickle in. With that is that you would only get maybe about 2 million every year. But with this loan, you can do this, and then you can also start to kind of stack the other money. So they can use that WARDA money, because this doesn't exclude them from WARDA money to do other improvements to the district. So that is, yeah.
Okay, so if that money comes in, it's not gonna go to replace the money that's being taken out of those?
I'll let Doa talk. So
Hi, Doa Ross from Big Bend Water District. Okay, so first of all, the amount of money is taken in increments. It would not be a full write a check from Fort Mojave Fund over to the Big Bend Water District. It wouldn't be an $11 million transfer. So for example, the very first thing we would do is have an engineering firm start the design of the drawings that are necessary to get permits to even build this. As we go to pay the design engineering firm, we would request that amount of money from Fort Mojave. So I'm making up numbers at this moment, but let's say it's $100,000, so we pay that. Let's just say as we're moving forward, we're getting ready to bid the project, we find out we get some funding actually appropriated for WRDA, and say that first chunk coming in is $2 million, then we put that $2 million to use and we don't take money from Fort Mojave Fund. So we're not allowed to actually repay Fort Mojave Fund with WRDA dollars, but we would take the WRDA dollars and use those first before asking for money from Fort Mojave. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So in a perfect world, we would be getting money coming from WRDA and not taking money from Fort Mojave Fund. But we cannot guarantee the time that that federal appropriation actually happens and how much they would appropriate at any given year. So we would just, as it comes in, we would stop requesting money from Fort Mojave, utilize all those dollars first, and then when that runs out, go back to requesting. So in essence, it's just offsetting the cost coming from Fort Mojave.
Okay.
I'll wait for the rest.
and that does conclude my presentation. So I guess we'll open it up to the board to ask myself or Doa questions. And
Or does Doa have a presentation as well?
Doa does not, but if you'd like to say anything or anything.
Does Doa have a presentation? I'm sorry, my mic wasn't on. Usually my voice can carry, but
No.
do you have one with us today or just simply here to answer questions?
No, I'm here to answer the questions. I was here in July of last year to present on exactly what the situation is with the tank's need. Just to remind the board and anybody else who's here, and I believe you had started in on that. Right now, today, the existing customer base that's here and all water commitments that have already been granted are grandfathered in. We have anywhere from 6 to 10 hours of storage of water available to us. On a perfect day, I know you say we're an hour and a half drive away, but it still means we would need to be able to collect the equipment, the materials, supplies, whatever's necessary to be able to head out here to do any sort of major repair, such as a main break. That's probably more realistically closer to about 3 hours before we're starting to do any repairs, because we have to pull crews and equipment from wherever they are in Las Vegas and get them out here, plus the drive. So that cuts into the time frame. Where we are today, right now, we know that we're grandfathered in, but we also need to be making improvements to getting into a better situation. Any additional demand on storage takes away from the existing customers 6 to 10 hours of actual service, and that's protection of everybody, including fire. So we won't add new demands on the system unless we're adding storage. So that's kind of where that comes from. The first tank is really going to address the bottleneck in the system. We can deliver so much water from the treatment plant, and the way we set up the system with pressure reducing valves, we may pump water up to higher elevations, fill tanks, and also send water back down to lower elevations. We used to never be able to do that, and we made those improvements to sort of loop within the system and create a little more reliability. The bottleneck in the system is the 750 zone, which in particular, our site where we already have one tank is just south of the treatment plant on the west side of the Casino Drive. And we would add a second tank to that site. That 2 million gallon tank will actually act as what's called a 4-bay. So from the treatment plant, it goes in and stores and gets ready for the pump station to move. Right now, the 4-bay that is built at the treatment plant is too small. So we may be able to treat a lot of water, we can't put it into the system to store it and get it filled up fast enough. So this would actually open up and release that bottleneck to allow more water to be able to fill up the tanks faster. And that's what gives us that huge jump to the, 18 to 20 hours of service available, water storage available just with the one tank. So for us, and in our communications with Nevada Division of Environmental Protection, the first tank is a huge improvement to this community, and which is why we feel that the first tank's the most important one. Second tank will get us to full ultimate compliance, but the first tank's the most important one. And under the word of dollars, we requested money for both tanks plus a backup well for this community as well for the intake off of the river. We just have no control over when they're going to give us that money, and we're not even sure if they would give us the full amount for the tank up front. So the Fort Mojave Fund is kind of that in-between for us. It'll sort of get us there until word of dollars are coming in.
And I want to make one other quick note. I know in my presentation, so the unpaid principal and interest at the end of the terms will be forgiven, but ratepayers will not be responsible to repay the balance. So I want that to be known, that, and DOA can touch more on that as well.
So basically, just to encapsulate a little more lay terms. So if it's not to exceed 11 million, and if development doesn't repay that in its entirety, then it becomes a grant from the Fort Mojave Development Fund to the Big Bend Water District, Las Vegas Valley Water
That's
District.
not
Correct.
what this was designed for, to be a grant.
For infrastructure,
For
but
this.
yeah.
Right.
And it's entirely up to this community. If the choice is rather that any remaining amount not paid by development is paid by customers, then that is the choice of this community. But when we were here last July, we heard from the folks in this room that any of this will not be on the backs of the ratepayers. So we took that very seriously. The thing we cannot control is the rate of development in Laughlin. If Laughlin does develop at a faster pace, and we've already heard 3 different projects that would initially kick off the first roughly $2 million of repayment.
And those are some of the projects, DOA, like from Commonwealth?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Housing, yes.
So if I can provide a little history on Commonwealth. Okay, so I sat on CDAC this last year. I was part, and I met with Daniel DeFresco. He was there in our hearings after our scoring process. I polled the applicant, those are public meetings as well. So I polled the applicant, Daniel, and I advised him of our water condition briefly. I didn't go into detail because I'm in a public forum with every other CDAC member. And he said he was aware of the water problem. However, I don't believe in depth he really was. In those type of forums, he may have been aware that he needed to talk with the water district, but I don't think he was aware of the program. However, we did vote, we did award him $800,000. And in my conversations that I've had with the commissioner regarding this, one of the concerns that he had is if this board does not approve the Fort Mojave Development Fund and the lending, anytime there is a CDAC grant, which is Community Development Advisory Committee, there are certain timelines that that developer must meet in order to utilize the funds. At this point, if this board does not approve it, I would be remiss and I would, be manipulative if I didn't say that this project very well could go away. But I also, Doa, you presented us with one, viable solution. I understand that. It's up for the board to consider that. But I'm here today, in addition, in my capacity, from the standpoint, we all realize that as town board, there are timelines we have to meet for things to become a portion of the agenda. There are things that our commissioner is not necessarily going to put out as complete and fully baked and an option. That's what this is. And I do believe some of the impetus behind this coming for us now, because the reality is this has been a problem for 16 years and at least more than a year, that the public has been aware of it, but it's been brewing since 2008, since they took over the water district. So I think that the reason we've come down to this fulcrum point and that it needs to be solved now is because we could hypothetically lose this development. And I understand that, and I think that's been the impetus behind getting this now. However, I also am aware of another option that is available to this community. And although it isn't here in this meeting, it isn't here because the finalization, the proposal and everything wasn't completed prior to our timelines for meeting the open meeting law timelines, which everything had to be into Tammy some time ago so that he could issue it. But in the back of the room, for anyone that's here, I've given two things. One is Fort Mojave Development Law, as it stands with the most recent update from the settlement of the $5 million taking that was done. And then in addition, what you'll find back there, for anyone, I think there's about 20 copies, I don't know if there's enough for everyone, but is a proposal. And are you familiar with Nevada by Design Group?
I have heard of Nevada by Design Group. If you're referring to something related to the Laughlin Bay Marina.
Actually, I'm referring to, it's an NGO. It's a non-governmental organization,
yeah.
501c3 that's been stood up.
I haven't seen anything from them, yeah.
So you haven't? Okay. Well, there is a draft proposal that is back there. And my understanding at this point, so an NGO was formed at the federal level with individuals trying to get approvals, getting a 501c3, which for any of us that are in business who have ever stood up a non-for-profit, you may not, I don't know your history if you've maintained government employment, but for those of us that are business owners, it takes time to get these type of things together, to get approvals. And for probably about the last 10 months, I've met with different people because this has been an issue. You saw me at your meeting in July. So this has been an issue that, we've been aware of for a while and trying to find solutions. So I've been contacted by other members in the federal government asking, what is this problem? What does it really look like? What are the parts of the problem? And so I've done my best to contact and advise what those problems are. Years ago, I'm going to digress a moment, I stood up an NGO as well, a 501c3 known as the Laughlin Higher Education Foundation. And I did that because at the time it was like 2000 time frame, so it was something that was very bare for Laughlin. In 24 years on this board, I have never seen anybody stand up an NGO with the sole charter and purpose is to help development and infrastructure in rural areas. I understand why the commissioner, he's aware of this program. I had conversation with him and I had conversation with Mark on Friday. They're aware of this, however, it wasn't fully baked and the commissioner is not going to present something that isn't. And I understand that. But me as just a little voice in a small town, I can. And so I'm excited from the standpoint that this NGO is looking at taking over the subcontract, building the tanks, and then turning them over to you guys for management. Now, their construction with prevailing wage, and they're looking at doing it with USDA funds and private funds as an NGO. And my kickback always from meeting with the representatives with the USDA is they will not deal with the county predominantly because of the fact that the county has such a vast budget. There are not federal funds to make that type of grant program. So an NGO would have to be the operative vehicle to do that. So I'm coming as a member of this board and I'm saying there is an NGO that has been stood up, and they are looking at building the water tanks. Their estimation, I've seen estimations at $4 million. This is moving dirt and construction in the ground. This is not your administrative, your management, your taking care of things how the water district has to do, because you have to run it as well, and I understand that. But that's just the dirt moving ground infrastructure with an NGO using no money from Fort Mojave Development Fund, no money from the ratepayers, but using grant money from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which is not an option for you, but it is an option for an NGO, and then private funding. So my concern is, I understand the push, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say if this board, and it's up to each member of this board, does not approve the Fort Mojave Development Fund use, that's an option if we don't approve it. But I also say that this is an option as well. I'm excited to see an NGO stood up with the main intention of helping rural development. And I know, at least I'm under the understanding that they have made you aware of their presence and things like that. In my conversation that I had with the commissioner Friday, I asked him, would you indeed, if these can get it to go forward and they can get the allowances, they can enter into a contractual agreement with the Big Bend Water District to complete this. I understand, because I'm done construction as well, the easements, the right-of-way, all of those type of things which the water district holds for these water tanks to be built. I asked the commissioner if this NGO is stood up and this is the option that we choose to go with, would he intervene and help that, make that a reality? Because those type of agreements can be very cumbersome. And he said if that was the direction the board wanted to go, he would do what he could. But this is not, and I have to be honest, this is not fully put together, fully standing and ready to go, although they do tell me they have design review and stuff and are ready to start in January.
Ready to start construction?
Ready to start. They have design review, they have construction bids with prevailing wage, and they're ready to start the contractual agreement in finality with you in January.
So one of the things that is, and I appreciate what you're talking about, so one of the things that is a challenge when it comes to talking to, and I'm going to take the whole NGO conversation out of it for just a moment, any sort of private development inquiries, and we get these inquiries a lot from a lot of private developers, even within Las Vegas Valley. As a public agency, we're dictated and governed under NRS 338. We have to publicly bid the project as a public works project. We don't bypass that, especially on an active existing water treatment facility where we already have an existing tank that's serving customers. So no matter which way we slice it, the Big Bend Water District will actually be administering the contract. Now, we definitely want local contracts, somebody close here to bid the project. As long as they are licensed to do business in the state of Nevada, they can bid the project. It doesn't matter if they live in Bullhead City or anywhere else. That is our hope. We actually hope that this town advisory board will spread the word amongst contractors out there to say, please bid this job, because our $11 million factor is based on the assumption that the contractor that gets the low bid is coming from Las Vegas. We're hoping local talent bids it, because you're going to cut that cost significantly down, because that's the advantage. It's mobilization that is your biggest expense. But with respect to our facilities, the design that's involved in that is a lot more than just a tank.
Correct.
We have to include motor controls, electrical cabinets. We have to include specialized coating, corrosion control. There are underground pipings within the site that's necessary, even water quality mixing involved, and all the SCADA programming. So all of this is more than just a tank. So it's not as simple as
Correct.
bolting up a tank. But if this NGO organization, it would be the Big Bend Water District that would bid the project, that would handle the funding of the project. Now, if it is something that is funded through a third party, like a developer or NGO wants to get that money to be able to front that, absolutely, all day, every day, that could work. And that's what we've been asking for every time we've met with any of these developers. Big Bend Water District does not have the ability or the rate structure to support taking a loan. There is no physical way to do it without putting it on the backs of the ratepayers. So we have to have somebody or some entity who is willing to step forward with that initial cash flow. If we are to have any development paying for this, which is what this community has asked for, is that development is paying for this, rather than have one developer pay for it, we've figured out a way to say a pro rata share over 625 acres. The problem is we have no control over which speed development happens out here. So rather than putting it on the backs of Peak Development or on the backs of Laughlin Bay Marina to say it's your bill to pay for because you come in first, if we have an entity, whether that be a third-party investment company where we can do a public-private partnership, or that be the Fort Mojave funds, whichever it is, whoever says, I have money, I can front this, then the whole idea of a connection charge for this is making it a pro rata share where every development that comes in is only paying for their portion of what they're adding to the system, not one developer having to carry the whole thing. And I am absolutely confident that if we can get some local talent, some local contractors to bid this, they're going to come in low bid no matter what coming in the door. Yes, we have to pay prevailing wage, we're required to.
Correct.
So whether it was done by us or by an NGO wanting to administer the contract, it's really no different except for the fact we are required to control that. It's our controlled facility, we have to maintain that. Also, for all of our staff in terms of inspection and construction management, there is no cost to this community for doing that. It's part of what we do. So we're not billing Fort Mojave Fund for my time or for anybody else's time coming out here. This is what we do. But if you have a third party, you're paying for some construction management on that third party. So there is that benefit within that. So I just wanted to actually address that.
So in other words, if this were to be stood up and be that third-party entity, you would come fully in support of it to get the problem solved in this community?
With the exception of them constructing it. They can't, it would have to be publicly bid through NRS 338 through us. If they know a contractor, please scoot them in to bid the contract. If they become the low bid, great. We're still charging prevailing wage just like they would have to as well. The only difference is instead of asking Fort Mojave Fund for the money, we'd be asking this NGO for the money that they've been able to get, whatever.
And you have not seen this at all?
No,
You or
I have
Bronson
not.
Mac?
No, I have not seen anything of the sort. The only communication we've had has been with these developments that have come in saying, I can't afford that. Laughlin Bay Marina was the only one who came in remotely close with potential investors with them, but they need to understand, how am I going to get repaid? And the part we can't control is the rate of development. And I can't say it's on the ratepayers. I can tell you that when it comes to USDA, and believe me, we have gone after money everywhere we could. We went after the state dollars, which was going really well until they got wind that this was for development, and then they shut it down because there is no grant money out there that will give us money if we say it's for development. We really have to stress that this is for system reliability for this community. The fact that development gets to happen with it is a bonus. So we went after USDA grant money, and we got pretty far talking to them, except for they required that this have to be repaid by the ratepayers at a cost of $60 per person per month, because they needed to guarantee that it would come back to them not by development, but by paying your bill. So we walked away from that one because we could not put that kind of a cost increase on the customers out here.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And right now, the best thing we've got is word of dollars coming. We're just
But those are not guaranteed. They
not-
haven't been
yeah.
approved, and those are something that's stipend over time.
That's
It's not
correct.
a large lump that will allow for.
an
And I
authorization,
appreciate
yeah.
the effort, trust me, it's not a negative thing that we do have that looming out there.
Yes.
But it's just not gonna be able to get something like this accomplished. And so I just have to state for myself, because I can't speak for anyone else on this board. In 24 years, I've never seen anybody stand up an NGO with the implied effort to be able to do this. And if we just take both of these options and we put them side by side and we look at the logic of the argument, from Fort Mojave Development Fund, do we go and take this loan that it may get paid back and it may not, and there may be other options that enter in. So let's just look at the logic of what we're talking about. This has been 16 years, at least 1 year that it's been sitting out there. Or do we take a possibility with this board, or I know myself I will, but with this board, to put some support behind an NGO or a plan B, if you will, that should be showing some progress of actually getting things done within a few months, and would enter into a contractual agreement with you, with the Big Bend Water District.
Right.
So we've been working with one set and one horse in the proverbial race for 16 years.
Sure,
And some of that got us in this situation.
yeah.
So then I'm looking at it logically from the standpoint, do I put some effort and some money and some energy behind someone else?
Sure.
And another plan and a plan B, and see if that isn't the best for my constituents? If that is something that is USDA funds and private funding and isn't related to the ratepayers and isn't related to the Fort Mojave Development Fund, does that just not, on a logic standpoint, stand on its own? Now, you can say that this will not happen and it's possible, but I'll tell you, these individuals have come against everyone in this community, power and money, and been told what they're trying to do cannot be done. And I stand here with one of my landlords in the audience, and I tell you, 30 years ago, they told me I couldn't build food courts in casinos either, that only the casinos operated them. Tom Jenkin, his grandfather, Don Laughlin, took a chance on me because everyone told me I could not do what I was doing. And I've been in business for 30 years with their support and their help.
Yeah.
So I can't say where this is going to come from, but I say I've been backing the same
Yeah.
horse in the race for 16 years.
Well-
And maybe it's time to perhaps table this, add some support to the Nevada by Design group, and see where that takes us. It doesn't mean it's dead. It doesn't mean it's done. Doesn't mean we can't pull it back and look at it, or look at a hybrid of the two if this doesn't happen.
Sure.
But that makes sense to me. And then we just have to understand with the caveats that the development of the $800,000 with the CDAC award for Commonwealth Development, which is 31 or 36?
It's 36.
36
that's okay.
subsidized senior housing may go away. We may lose that.
I would say, I mean, and this is ultimately up to the board's decision. That's why we brought this forward, because we want the board to make the decision, the community make the decision. We're not telling anyone to do one thing or another. I will just say that, like, if it is tabled, most likely the senior development housing will be gone, because there's a lot of state requirements.
Timelines they must
Yes,
require. Yeah,
and
and that is, I tried to make that
Yeah.
point at the beginning of what I had to say here, because it's very rare. And I would be manipulative, and it would be wrong of me to not bring that to the reality.
Right,
But I
yeah.
did ask the applicant, it's a public forum, what we have for CDAC. I did, if it's recorded, I did ask the applicant specifically if he was aware of the water problem. And he assured me in that meeting that he had talked with the water district. But I think he had just talked cursory talk. I don't think he understood the depth and breadth of the problem that we had at that time.
They have come in to meet with us, so.
Correct, but
as-
this would have been December of
Yes.
2023.
Yes, yes. And so we have had multiple conversations, because they've tried to look at all different angles, no matter which way we take it. You know, the request from them came in, well, is there any way we could just let us in? The problem is if we just let them in, that demand of 36 equivalencies are going to take away from the existing water supply storage timeframe in this existing community. And then where are we in a position to have said yes to them when they came in later than Peak Development or even Marina Bay? So we process everything on a first in, first out type of situation. And really, yeah, probably the commissioner said, you know what, we've been asked so many times over to find a solution. Here's a solution, because our issue is we can get this done, and we can get this done very quickly. And the great news is that we can get it done while allowing the development to be constructing
To
parallel.
continue, and so that's vital as well, because,
Yes.
so you're kind of grandfathering, and the public needs to understand that if this board approves doing the funding and you have the funding to go ahead for the 4-bay tank, what you're saying is all the development that's hinging on it, the state and Clark County will allow to go forward immediately.
Yes, because
So my question to you would be, if this third-party organization, this NGO, comes forward and they get the bid, will that also happen with them? Will you make sure that if they get this stood up by January and get bids or whatever it is that you need through your proverbial hoops, which I don't know, I'm not part of this NGO, but I have a problem and I need a solution.
understand.
So my thing is, will you make sure that that goes with, as well as the easements and other things that are out there?
I can tell you right now that, well, first of all, with respect to easements, we already have the land, so it's not even having to get easements. It's actually a very clean-cut situation for building a tank. What we would look at this situation of with this Nevada by Design, and now keep in mind, I have not seen it, so I don't know any of the terms and conditions.
the
within
back
it.
on the
I
table
definitely
for
will
you.
take a copy of it, so I appreciate that. But we would treat this the way we do with developer-paid agreements. So what happens is we enter into an agreement with Olympia Group or Howard Hughes or anybody else who says, I need these facilities, and we do an agreement for construction, one for design, one for construction, and they basically agree to fund it. That's what they're doing. So they're agreeing to fund it, which means they have to show that they have the money up front before we execute the agreement at the board. But that is a public-private partnership.
Correct.
It's not coming out of ratepayers. It's not coming out of any connection charges. It's paid for by private development. We would do the same thing to this. What I don't know, and I would need to review this document, is to make sure that this entity understands that, again, we cannot control the rate of repayment if that's what they're expecting. I don't know.
think so at all. No,
If
I think they're
not-
talking grant money, so it's not about repayment, it's not about money from the
Even
water
better,
district.
even
Correct,
better.
and that's, like I said, and they also, so they have also met with me on a myriad of other issues that we have within this community. And it's a 501c3 that stood up for the sole purpose of helping infrastructure and rural development. That's their charter, that's their organizational documents. So they want to be involved. This isn't the only project, but it's a small win for them if they can get this accomplished. But the other part of it is I've never seen an NGO that gives us options, and we've not had that. And so I like I said, for me personally, I want to put some support behind them and see where it goes. It doesn't mean that we can't pull this back at some point. I mean, this is my opinion. It doesn't mean that we can't pull it back at some point and look at a hybrid or look at another option. I won't go into the million of other reasons why, it's one thing to use Fort Mojave development funds for development, which I understand this is development, but this is development that we're in an aw shit crisis. So I don't like that. I don't like that on the surface. I don't like crisis management. And sometimes you make poor decisions when you're in crisis mode. And ask anyone that's ever worked for me, you don't put me in crisis mode because you can't logically think through things and the precedent and everything that's happening. So those are my concerns. And like I said, I'm just trying to be honest with the community, what we might lose if we decide not to fund it through Fort Mojave Development Fund, and what I can foresee as a solution. The best solution for the community, because that's all I care about. I live and die by, I understand you live in Vegas, but I live and die by what happens in this community, by its health. My business is everything, and my motives are very clear. Laughlin does better, I do better.
Sure.
So if I need to disclose that, I need to disclose that, but that's the reality of who I am and why I'm here.
Kathy, when could they possibly come do a presentation?
I'm sorry.
When could they possibly come and do a presentation?
So Nevada by Design is willing to come September, October, depending on, this board requesting them and it being allowed to be on the agenda.
Yeah, and I will agree with Doe. I mean, we've spoken with them, but we haven't seen anything. That's why, we haven't seen anything in concrete.
And it wasn't ready. And I understood that, which is why I am presenting it, because we, as members of an elected board with constraints with open meeting law, have to have things to the secretary to put out in a public forum in certain timelines. And it wasn't ready at that point.
And I just don't want the community to think that we're not open to all offers that are coming to the table.
Correct. I
It's
think we
just-
certainly are. It's just, it
Yeah.
wasn't fully baked and ready for the commissioner to put it out. And he can't put something like that out until it is a viable solution completely with all the Ts crossed and Is dotted. I understand that of his position, but I'm just little old me and I'll do it.
Do you happen to know whether or not this NGO has already secured the funds?
I do believe they have already earmarked USDA funds, yes.
Okay, so they would be able to, the question I'm asking is, in other words, there would be, at some point in time, a transfer of money from them to the Big Bend Water District to be
I
able
believe
to-
that's how they would do it, but honestly, I can build things, I can do construction, but I don't understand the whole contractual thing unless it's law enforcement contracts. I'm an ex-cop, LAPD, so I understand those, but I don't know how your contractual basis works as far as how that would go. But I do believe in the conversations that I've had, and I believe they met with someone in your staff on Monday, this last Monday, with the water district, which is why, again, Monday it wouldn't have been ready necessarily to go, for today. It just wasn't a possibility, but I do believe they met. But as far as they're willing to present, and, I believe they have met with a few of your people already. So whether they have, I don't know how hard it is to get to you in the proverbial food chain of the water district. I don't know how. Like I said, I can't just go in as a citizen and meet with the commissioner. I'm going to meet with Mark or someone else first.
Right, no, and I am absolutely reachable. People email me all the time, they call. I mean, Bronson's kind of your main voice in terms of anything that comes up, but if ever there's a need whatsoever to meet with me, it's just a matter of when's the next available, hour that you need. For example, Mr. Bilbray knows, I've met with him many times. Every time he's wanted to have a meeting, I've made myself available for him. So we do this for everybody. My only thing is, with respect to that, I would like to have an opportunity to read it. It really is kind of a question of, if they have the money ready, say now, because we already have a consultant for design already giving us their proposal. We already gave them the scope of work. So we're getting it ready. So all we'd have to do is execute the agreement with them, and they start the design right away. And while we're doing the design, we're getting pre-purchasing of some equipment going so that we can get things going faster. If this NGO has the money and is able to enter into that agreement with us, where they understand that they are acting as a developer, they are providing the funds for this, for design, and then for construction, we will bid it. Now, if they have a contractor that they want to specifically bid that job to make sure they get it, they get in, come in, be that low bidder. As long as they're licensed in Nevada and can meet all of the insurance requirements, that's fine. They can come in, do that project, and we just oversee the construction of it. So this would be that scenario. It's no different than how we act and operate with any of the other developers when they're privately paying for something that is a publicly bid project. If they have that money already ready and secured, then sure, why not? Because they have that. It would just be a matter of going through a typical agreement, and we have standard agreement language that we could enter into with them, and they would act as the developer in that case. And at the end of the day, they sign over all the facilities to us and say, here you go. Great. That's one way of doing it. So if that is the will of this board to do that instead of the Fort Mojave funds, the only risk to that is it takes time to go through all of those. They're going to want to review it legally. Our attorneys will review any of their comments or edits back. So it takes time. Then it has to go to our board to be able to execute it. I don't know what that does to the senior housing project. So I think that is, you're absolutely correct.
And I've tried to be very honest and open about that. Because it was an $800,000. I sat on CDAC that year.
Sure.
And it was, we were pretty proud of achieving that for
Absolutely, absolutely. But again, we're ready to go. We just have had nobody able to come forward with the fronting of the money. It doesn't mean all the money is dumped at once, but it means has that money available to be able to begin paying for this project so that we can move forward. We haven't had anybody able to give us the money, And the next choice was, how do we do it so that pro rata share, every development is paying into a portion of that tank to pay it back to whomever it is. Well, if it's a grant from this NGO, then there is no connection charge associated with that.
Correct. And I believe also one of the things, just in your own presentation, because, some of the pushback I've had about, the bids and what it would cost them to do was about, there's more involved with the water district than just moving dirt and hooking up to infrastructure and everything like that. There's the administration and the operations of it as well.
Right.
And so I looked at some of what you guys had in your own presentation, that currently the development that you have that would grandfather in under this was new connection fees estimated at $3,000 per equivalent unit with an annual CPI escalator, which is 3.3. And then you have, I believe it was $2 million, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that was taking that same, so what we
Current
did.
development.
Yeah.
Right, and putting that back in. So, of course, with a contractual agreement, that $2 million could go towards your administration. Because in their proposal to you is, where construction is completed, they hand full over operations to the water district to maintain and operate in perpetuity.
Absolutely. Maintaining and operating these facilities goes right into everything we already do.
And I think that's definitely, but again, I've been made aware of them since their formation for about 8, 9, 10 months. They just came to me asking me for information. I said, here's what I think is the problems. But I'm not a part of them, so whether they actually have the funding, I do believe they do, because a lot of the things you're telling me, I've heard. But like I said, they're certainly willing to present before this board in September or October, depending upon which we would like and what's available with the county. And I do know that they have met with your staff on a few times.
Yeah.
So, whether they've specifically met with you, I don't know. I didn't ask that question,
only
though. I
question-
forgot about you.
Yeah, the
Nothing
only-
personal.
No, it's okay. No, the only question that I do know that has been asked by at least Laughlin Bay Marina, and I don't know if they have been helping
They
to
have
facilitate
associations
this.
with the marina, but that's not what this
Yeah,
is.
the
This
only
isn't
question-
solely the marina.
Yeah, the only question that has come up to our staff is whether or not they can privately build the tank and then just give it to us at the
But
end.
I believe you also had that conversation with Peak Development as well.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and their
so-
bid was like $4 million for it and stuff, so.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we are 100% confident that that cost comes down significantly if we can get local talent.
Correct. It's the same way I'm owner builder in my restaurants. So what would cost me $600,000 to build if I hired, a general contractor to do everything? As owner builder, I can build for $350,000.
Sure.
I mean, that's the reality of being local, being boots on the ground, and doing it that way.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. I'm sorry, I've monopolized the majority of time. I don't know if there's any other questions. I'll be quiet now. It's rare.
So looking at this new option that we have, and we asked them to come in September to give a presentation, how is that going to affect your timeline that you're currently on if you get the funding from the Fort
It does
Mojave?
not affect my timeline at all. Like I said, we've created the scope of work document, given it to the consultant who's preparing an estimate right now for their design fee. That can be held for whether it's 1 month or 5 months, it doesn't make any difference. The only thing that we're aware of is the timeline that the senior housing project has. So with respect to that, that was the only reason for us to be a little more urgent, and especially in supporting the commissioner's desire to try and find a solution for this community. The only thing I would say is, for us, it doesn't matter. It's just the only thing we can do is we cannot actually begin anything until we know we have a funding source secured.
And your timeline still stays at 18 to 24 months.
Yes.
Plus you mentioned earlier in your statements that you had to start the design process, but then you also said a little bit later that you have design review. So which is it?
No, we have a design consultant.
Consultant.
That we have given.
But you don't have design review completed already at this point.
No, because the consultant has to create the design, which will then be reviewed
Plus, you
by
have to
us.
fund his work, correct?
Absolutely, yes. And generally, that's a fraction of the cost when you deal with a consultant, but we do have to have design drawings and specifications prepared even to submit to NDEP for a permit. And that's for the very beginning, and also to be able to give something to the general contractor to know what to bid on. So that way they can properly design the facility. So the review is part of our timeline in that 18 to 24 months. That includes the design consultant preparing the drawings and specifications, submitting it to us for review, submitting it to NDEP for review, and then ultimately wrapping it up into a bid package. And then we go out to bid and do all that process. So the timeline for constructing the tank really isn't a lot. It's a lot of the administrative pieces that are in between it, because we are required to do that per NRS 338.
And just as so the board's aware that Nevada by Design are watching our meeting today, so that they felt it would be, although they weren't invited, to come, obviously it wasn't ready, but they did want to listen to this today so that they would be able to have more information for us if we do indeed desire them to present.
Well, Madam Chair, I'd like to make the motion that we table this till the September meeting.
I think I'd like to hear if anyone else has a comment before we move forward.
From the public.
From the public? Thank you.
Robert Bilbray, 1631 Cal Edison Drive, Laughlin, Nevada, Bilbray. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Laughlin Economic Development Corporation, not myself specifically. I think it's pretty clear that there's a lot of questions, terms, conditions, floating alternatives, that it would be extremely unfair to this board and to this community for you not to hold this item and get additional information regarding timelines, contingencies, alternatives. Let those come to fruition. So I'm not specific. It is extremely unusual what's being requested of you here. The Fort Mojave Development Law was adopted in 1962, so it's been 66 years and nothing, and I'm only 45 years of it, but nothing has ever occurred to borrow money from a trustee, as the Clark County Board of County Commissioners are, under the Fort Mojave Development Act, and to a county department like Big Bend Water District. It's never occurred before. It is extremely, extremely concerning. We know they've done every avenue that they can think of to fund this through grants and non-payable back loans. So what they're doing here is, we can't get the loan from the private sector. We no longer have a reputation for any more public-private partnerships. And I want to make it very clear, after I processed through and assisted and supported and paid for 8 joint public-private partnerships for roadways, flood control, dredging lagoons, maintaining the lagoons. I'm still maintaining them. And it all fell apart on Casino Drive with over $300 million worth of inline development. Well, I respectfully appreciate what additional information the Water District's given us. The Water District has very, very small credibility inside any public-private partnership in this community ever again, and rightfully so. They put in a lot of roads, a lot of flood control, dredge lagoons, maintain the lagoons. They're still paying for dredging a lagoon that they can't get water service to. And that's a reality we're going to have to repair. But I think there's not enough information here for you to make the decision. I would like to, I'll try to close. I know my comment's going over. I appreciate it. Again, in 1962, it was never, ever envisioned that the Fort Mojave Development Funds would be used in lieu of the district's inability to conventionally finance the improvements in this community. I'm not saying that I don't like 30 years. I would like to throw out some numbers, and I will give the board, if I may submit later, this information. At $11 million, assuming principal only, interest would be an addition, divided by the 1,500 ERU counters, we would need 7,333 connection units just to pay back the principal on this loan. Divided by 30 years, that's 244 hookups per year, or 20 hookups per month. I would submit we haven't seen, other than one or two minor single-family residents, we haven't seen anything other than a Family Dollar in 2.5 years, folks. This will not happen. And then the most egregious issue is even with the loan not being paid off after 30 years, it's forgiven. It's forgiven. I would submit that there's not a conventional lender or underwriter in the country that would offer these type of terms. They're not conventional lending terms. I'm willing to work with the Water District. I have for 40 years. This is not the answer. It establishes a horrible precedent for this community. Notwithstanding the extremely concerning, blatantly obvious conflict of interest for the Board of County Commissioners, that puts them in a terrible position. Do I think there's a way to work it out? Fine, but we need more. You need more information as to contingencies, and you have to look at this like you're loaning the money.
Right.
To an entity we've sat here for almost a year and a half, knows can't get the money from anyone else.
Okay. We see your point, and now we have some options on the table, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, these summaries of the number of units that are needed to pay it off, I'll be glad to submit.
If you can give it to
If you
staff,
give it
appreciate
to
that.
Tammy, that would be
But
great.
my point is, I don't think we're going to see 244 hookups a year or 20 a month.
Yep.
Not. The
Appreciate
default
that.
will occur very soon.
Thank you, Mr. Bilbray.
Make sure Tammy gets a copy, Bill, please. Or Bob.
I didn't know the numbers, so.
I'm taking my badge off.
I have that same problem. Sometimes I have to go over there.
Yeah. Carrie Larson, previous employee of Peak Development, Inc. I just want to correct the record. I did provide a bid of about $4 million to other people on the board for building.
I think Doha did acknowledge that Peak Development had submitted a $4 million bid to you.
Yes.
Okay.
In my estimate, I even gave them an extra $1 million for fun. And what I would like to correct on the record, she mentioned several times that she thinks that instead of it being $11 million, it would be much, much cheaper if we used local contractors. The bid that I submitted was for one of the two tank companies in the western United States, one of which is one that their staff spoke to get an estimate on a tank. I also used Clark County pricing for all of the piping estimates, as well as Nevada prevailing wage for the entire project, and Las Vegas contractors. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows that this was not using local labor. It included all of the staging and bringing everyone down from Las Vegas. And again, I threw an extra $1 million in there. The tank company actually does the engineering because they are the engineer of record for the tanks, according to the tank company that spoke to Las Vegas Valley Water District about bidding the tank for here. So I'm not quite sure why, other than to get a scope of work, they would need an outside extra one. But if it's only $100,000, why not throw that in that extra $1 million? So my concern is that with this NGO and Big Bend Water District, Las Vegas Valley Water District, being in control of the construction and bidding process, our $5.5 million proposal from the NGO would end up costing $11 million anyway. Not sure how they figure that out, but that just seems to be the going difference between $5 million and $11 million. I don't know where this extra $6 million comes from, and that's my concern as a resident, that we're going to have to pay interest on money that we don't know where it went. That is all I have to say.
Thank you.
Just maybe to address that, if we have the NGO present before us, maybe entering into a fiduciary accounting to this board. So I want to say audit or overview or oversee or oversight of the NGO into the funds that are being utilized by the water district and stuff, to oversee that for transparency's sake. I would think they would be perfectly fine with that.
Daniel Glass, GLASS. My concern is, where are we going to get the water? Right now, we're at a historic low. Now you're worried about is storage?
Sir, our allocation, we're utilizing 3,000 gallons or 3,000 acre feet of 15,000 allocated. So we're using less than 1/5 of our allocated water that we have. This community we don't necessarily have a water shortage. We have the inability to get it in the pipes, get it fully treated, and get it to the residents and new development. But we are only utilizing 1/5 of our allocated water. So we don't have a water shortage. And in the back of the room, there is a document from our water district.
Have you checked Lake Mead's water level lately? Have you checked Lake Mead's water level? It is at a historic low. They put a third pipe in the middle of the lake. Do you know why? Because the two outlets that feed the dam and all that are almost useless now. They're sucking the water out of the middle of the lake. My question is, how are we going to put the water back into the lake? It is fed by the Rocky Mountain snow melt. With all this money that we're getting and throwing around, can we make it snow? Can we create water? Can we put it back into our system? No. All we're doing is taking it out. That's all you care about. People when they use too much water, you fine them. Are you taking that money and turning it into water? No. You're just taking it out. I think we ought to figure a solution on how to replenish our water levels. It's ridiculous. All you want to think about is storage, putting it over here. Don't care about our water. You should be concerned, Mr. Laughlin, wherever you went. This is our city depends on that river out there. It is built because of that river out there. Think about it. You're just taking it, and not putting it back.
Any other comments?
Hi, my name is Renee Yepez. I live here in Laughlin. And my only concern is that if we use these Fort Mojave funds, and as she was very clear and transparent in saying, and the ward funds don't come through, and they can't, then they'll keep using those funds, and they can't repay those funds back to that Fort Mojave account. My only thinking is there another account we can create where they could put money back for Laughlin if they were to get the funds for payback somehow? Is there, I don't know how you do things, in the county to make things work, but is there a way to create another account for capital that they could pay back into? I mean, I don't know what the restrictions are for them not being able to pay back to the Fort Mojave Fund unless it's just because it's a grant and it needs to be utilized strictly on the construction.
Sure. Doha, do you want to address that? Can
And
she?
that's probably it. She's saying, yes, that's it, that's it. Because I'm thinking, if we could get the money back somehow, then, okay, but with the unknown, and then it just being pulled out, and that's not what it was created for. I'm afraid to lose that. There's a lot of other things that we need here,
Yes.
and we need to use whatever help we can get outside of that Fort Mojave fund. Go ahead.
She was absolutely correct. Once we've applied for a grant, we have to utilize those funds for the project that we have said we are using it for. So it's not to repay something, and that's why I was trying to explain that we would not take all of the money up front. We would only take in payments as things are needed to be paid, and as soon as we received any money from any grant funding source, no matter anywhere else in the state of Nevada or the federal government, if we got free dollars, we stopped taking from Fort Mojave. We utilize all of those. And so essentially it's kind of paying it back because, again, we're not taking all of the money. It's just not, it's supplementing. So it says, okay, this is money we don't need to have Fort Mojave disperse.
On my way of paying back.
Thanks.
And if there's no other public comments, I want to have DOA an opportunity to answer any of those questions. I think that would be beneficial, and then I would like to be able to answer as well before we do any decisions. So I don't know, DOA, if you wanted to touch base on them, if any of them.
Well, I mean, I will state, for those of you guys who may or may not know, I mean, one of the benefits of this community is that you do have return flow credits.
Correct.
So you have a report out from Big Bend Water District for how much diversion comes out of the river, but you also
It's
have
at
a
the
report.
back of the room, yeah,
and
as
you
well
also
as
have
our
a
return
report.
flow, what we put back into the river after it's been treated.
Exactly, which is exactly what we do in the Las Vegas Valley to keep sending water back down the river. So with respect to the supply part of it all, as long as your treatment plant is treating and returning it, and that's it's all your indoor water use, that's really not going against your diversions. So, is there anything in particular you wanted me to address?
No, and I'll just say I know there's, sounds like there's discussion to possibly hold this item. I just want it to be known that, like, if this is held, I'm not sure that it would come back again, because I don't believe, and DOA can chime in on this, I don't think any of those proposed terms would change. I don't think anything would change from this. DOA, myself, Jessica Colvin, the Chief Financial Officer, Kevin, the Chief Financial Officer, we've all been working to find out a way to solve what we've heard for the community. You as a town board, you're allowed to do whatever you would like. I'm not telling you what to do. I will let you know that most likely the senior housing won't happen. So that's definitely a risk, but once again, that's why we want to bring this forward to do that. I'm not telling you what to do or not to do, but I just want to share that and let you know that,
So you're saying that if we were to hold this or table it, that these terms would stay the same or would not stay the same? I'm sorry. I just don't.
No.
My hearing
I
is really
believe-
bad today.
I believe these terms would stay exactly
Would
the same.
stay.
Yes.
As you have it designed, it's a relatively 18 to 24 month kind of sort of plan.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll mention as well, I mean, I've talked with Evan in Houston from Nevada by Design. I know Jason and Chauncey with Big Bend Water. So I was the one that asked them to speak to them on Monday so that they were aware of this. We let them know. We let all the developers that have inquired know about this plan, because we've heard that there needs to be a solution. So, we feel that and you did the money for the CDBG, that, like, that's a pretty legitimate developer. That seems like, in my time being here, I know I'm not here that long, but of seeing development and talking with Tammy Development, I mean, this one seems like the most concrete, ready to go. So that's what I will say. I don't know if Doe wants to chime in on anything. I mean, and your team has done a great job, and I want to thank Doe as well for today for doing this. But they've talked to every developer. We've tried to find solutions. So this sounds like a wonderful solution. I just haven't had. I've asked lots of times to get stuff. I've asked USDA, like, what can we do? Like, we wouldn't want to touch Fort Mojave. We want to get grant funding, but it's so hard to get it for development storage. So that's my only 2 cents. But like I said, your board, I mean, if you want to hold it, I can ask. I just don't know if it'll come back. That's what I will say.
But if we, I believe under the procedures that we have in Roger's rule, if we table it, we can pull it off the table at any point, am I correct?
Tammy?
Under Roger's rules of parliamentary procedure. Is that a point of information? So we'll
We
call
would-
a point of information
to
on
answer
but
that-
I do believe we can.
Honestly, we do want to double check. I'm just saying I know Commonwealth is like well past their deadlines of reporting to the state. So if we tell them it's another
Sorry,
month-
who is way
the
past?
the Commonwealth Senior House
okay.
soon. So.
Again, I'm sorry, my
No,
hearing
no,
is
you're good. You're
really
good.
bad.
You're good. So, but we can look in as well of tabling and bringing it back if that's part of the Roberts Rule of
Yeah,
Order. then-
I mean, a lot of times parliamentary procedures, they use tabling because then it's something that's accessible within this board
Sure.
that we can pull back off the table at any point. Or, you know, I mean, I can't ever remember holding something. I never have remembered holding.
I
We've
think it
either
should be
voted
tabled.
against it, table it, or vote for it.
Right.
I mean, those have been our options pretty much in the past. Renee?
Table.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm deafer and a
She
doornail
said
today.
table
so-
it because things that get put on hold usually never come back.
Right, and that's why I was thinking from the parliamentary procedure rules to utilize that,
Robert's
if
Rules
the
of
board
Order,
wanted to. I
table.
mean,
So,
okay. All right, Doa, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any more
Thank you
questions?
so much.
Yep, sorry.
Any further questions? Okay, I'm going to call for a motion on this item at hand.
You want me to try?
I
Pam,
make the
or-
motion that we table this
Okay.
to
If-
September.
If I might also amend that we table utilizing the Fort Mojave Development Fund for a loan for the Big Bend Water District, and that this board invite Nevada by Design to do a presentation before this board in September or October, seeking, because they do seek our support for a private-public partnership for design and construct of 2 water tanks. This is 2, not 1, to service the Laughlin community and turn over operation and administration to the water district.
Okay, I second that.
So we have
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Second.
Good morning.
Okay, can I call for a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. We will table this until September. Okay, next, comments by the general public. A period devoted to comments by the general public about matters relevant to the board's jurisdiction will be held. No vote may be taken on a matter not listed on the posted agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Please step up to the speaker's podium, clearly state your name and address, and spell your last name. If any member of the board wishes to extend the length of your presentation, this will be done by the chairperson for a majority vote. Do we have any public comment?
Robert Bilbray, 1631 Cal Edison Drive, BILBRAY. I'm here representing the Laughlin Economic Development Corp. I would ask the board to consider an expansion of the report coming from the Water Reclamation District. As you may or may not know, we've been working on the potential rehabilitation of the Area 2 lift station, and also the force main going from that lift station up section 28 and across the entire power plant. It's been going on for about 8 months. Generally, they've been requesting an additional easement. The property owners, including myself, have asked them to give us a time if they were to get the easement, when would they use it? And where is the funding for the renovation of the wastewater treatment plant, the Area 2 lift station, and the force main? We've yet to see that. And it's not uncommon in communities when one utility is under stress. We could have expected that the wastewater
Mr. Bilbray, what is
be under stress.
the Area 2 lift station and Area 28? Can you define that a little better for me? Because I'm a little lost.
I'm sorry.
The location, and you said there's an easement, so Area 2 lift station, Zone 28. If you could kind of outline.
Nice looking maps you have. Right across on Casino Drive. Force Main is up there. There's the Area 2.
Back behind Peak Development and Laughlin Bay Marina, that area?
Yeah.
Okay. Lift station 2, Area 28, I just wasn't familiar with. Okay.
The lift station's across the street from pretty much Laughlin Bay.
Bayshore.
Emerald River.
Emerald
I'm
River,
getting
Bayshore.
I'm getting all my emeralds and Laughlins mixed
Yeah,
up.
you just threw Area 28, and I
You
just
know,
don't know that.
we've been diligently working with the Water Reclamation District because we're very concerned about the Area 2 lift station renovation that's been needed for a long time. So's the force main. We haven't discussed the funding for it. I can't get the answers of when it would be built if we granted the easement. And I would point out to the board that this improvement does not increase the capacity of the sewer treatment plant. Sewer treatment from that lift station does not. So we may be in a situation where this should be monitored by the board and the community in a monthly report as to what is the status of the rehabilitation of the Area 2 lift station and the rehabilitation of the force main. Because it doesn't do any good for us to be discussing a water issue here when there may not be any wastewater, because this does not, again, I want to reiterate, this does not expand the ability of that lift station to service additional development. Nothing. And what we're talking about here is the entire South Laughlin, all 3,500 homes in South Laughlin. And I would think, I personally, as a resident and a property owner, would love to get a monthly detailed report as to what is the status of that renovation of that lift station and that force main.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments?
Mr. Glass.
Daniel Glass, GLASS. I have a question. What does no trespassing mean?
Our Metro's not here. A former Metro, the NRS statement, the definition.
Well, then my question is, why would a business put a no trespassing sign on the front of their business?
I don't have
Does
it.
that make sense?
So unfortunately, in public comment, we're not able to go back and forth with discussion. However,
Well,
I would say.
That's a comment I have to make.
No. I would say if you go out front and go right across this hallway, that's
Maybe I can
Metro.
talk to Gino. I'll talk to Gino afterwards.
Yeah,
Maybe
and Gino will be able to help you.
probably help me out. But I have another issue about just the city in itself with our pigeon issue. I don't know if anybody knows the history of how they got here, but I'm aware that Mr. Don Laughlin used to have live pigeon shootings out here on his casino. Does anybody know if that's true or not? Maybe you're shaking your head. It must be true, correct?
Once again, since it's public comment, we can't go back and forth. We can look into it.
So my comment is, they carry 7 diseases that are airborne. And we have a lady out here, unfortunately, she has a very horrible disease. She's bent over. I imagine everybody has seen her there, the residents in Laughlin. And she feeds the pigeons. And it's illegal, but you let her do it anyway. She shops in the market. And by the way, did I mention everything that the pigeon has are airborne disease? Encephalitis. You guys want that? I don't. The other ones, I'm not a genius. I can't pronounce them. I'm not the brightest bulb in the knife drawer. I don't think it's very cool for her to go inside the market after she's had pigeons crawling all over her. And our wonderful Metro doesn't do nothing about it. You know, I feel sorry for the lady. Help her. Do something for her. But don't continue letting her endanger my health. I shop at that market. I don't know if any of you other people do here, but I do. It's concerning. Quite concerning. And the other day I walked out of my house to see my neighbor being pulled over by Metro Police. On his property, I walked over to him on his property. I have the 14th Amendment to travel unmolested. This will be short. Yeah, I have more time.
Go ahead, finish.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glass.
This is very disturbing to me. As you can see my condition, I'm a 70-year-old man. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I've been in this residence, I've owned my house since 1984 here. I have a neighbor, we were operating engineer buddies. We worked together on the same place. There's amazing how many operating engineers live in this town of Laughlin. He is my neighbor. I had one exactly next to me. We had all three of us were operating engineers. We had stories. We worked together on the same job. He gets pulled over. Apparently a citizen thought he was an impaired driver. He got pulled over. I go outside to check this out to see what's happening. Within 2 minutes and 17 seconds out of my house, walking onto this man's property, which I have 100% permission to be there, I was arrested for obstruction, standing over 37.6 inches away from my neighbor on his property edge. I was accosted by the Las Vegas Metro tyrant, Doble. 2 minutes and 17 seconds out of my house, I was arrested for obstruction. Does anybody know what obstruction means? It says a thing. Do I look like a thing? As you can see, I am quite upset.
I'm sorry this happened to you, and we do hear you, but this is something that I believe has to be taken up with Metro, right?
Oh, Metro? They're a joke. I talk to them, and all they do is defend their officers. Well, you should have obeyed. Well, for starters,
Okay.
I have not
to the
broken
next-
the law.
Thank you, Mr. Glass. This
Okay.
is public
No, I just
comment,
wanna
so
tell
we
you, you
can't
guys
have
got
a
a bunch of private
conversation
officers
with
here.
you.
We're done.
Okay?
This is public
Thank you
comment
very
only.
much.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Glass.
And you will be hearing from my lawyer. I have been illegally arrested. My rights have been violated. This town is going to be sued.
We have one other gentleman that wants to speak. Mr. Glass, there's a gentleman that would like
I
to speak
understand
as
that.
well.
Thank you.
I understand that. And plus,
Mr. Glass.
Thank you.
you guys
We're
give
done.
these other
Enough,
people 15,
Mr.
20
Glass.
minutes, and we
Okay.
get 3
We're enough.
minutes?
Enough. There's another individual has as much right to speak
I'm
as you do
blind? I
that
see
is
that.
behind. Enough.
Don't tell me shit.
My name is
Don't tell
Captain
me.
John Burke.
In a
Excuse
minute,
me.
I'll have you removed.
Excuse me, stop, please. Thank you.
Captain John Burks with the Salvation Army, BIRKS. I'm just here to say hi again. I came a couple of times last year. Sorry I haven't been over here as much. But I just want to let you know that we are still serving individuals from Laughlin. The Salvation Army is the Salvation Army of Bullhead and Laughlin. So we do help individuals from Laughlin as well. The one thing that I always tell my volunteers to do the best we can is to serve regardless of what community they come from, serve everyone the same. And we do that on those who donate to the Salvation Army. We have wonderful donors from the Laughlin area, as well as Bullhead, as well as down in Fort Mojave. And we're just very thankful for everyone pitching together and help. Our motto is kind of doing the most good, and we do the best we can to help those most in need. But I just want to say thank you so much for your guys' service. I know at times it can be difficult with the decisions, but I'm glad that you're here at a time of this, and sometimes it does take patience. And my prayer is that there'll be a funding source that will come that will just be amazing for you guys and for this town of Laughlin, because you really need it. You really need it, and it's something that is needed for that water source. Without it, we can't live, right? And so we need it for every community. Bullhead's the same way. We're doing the best we can to get the water that we need as well. So thank you again. Respect your leadership, and thank you for doing the best you can for your community as well. Thank you.
Can you just,
Madam Chair, if I could just, go ahead.
can you just repeat your name for the record? We didn't catch it.
No problem. Captain John Birks, B-I-R-K-S.
And Madam Chair, if I could just ask, where are you guys accepting your donations? And then also, what are certain donations that you need?
So we do we do a couple of things at the Salvation Army off of Palma Road in Bullhead City. Let me get the address.
Behind Harbor Freight, if I'm
Correct.
not
It's right
mistaken.
over there,
Yeah, directly behind Harbor
but
Freight.
We actually have a contract with the Little Caesars that helps out with those homeless bags that we give out every day, and then also so any snack foods for the homeless bags would be great, and then we also any canned goods, anything that we can put on the shelf for monetary donations. I can give you that information as well.
I'm just curious, like clothing,
we have
those
a
type of
thrift
things.
store
I
there.
just need to know what it is that
Yeah,
would be
so
most helpful, that you're most in need of.
Yeah, we actually have a truck that comes and picks up for large donations only for furniture and stuff. So you can call our number there. You look it up on Google and call us for those and get set up for that. But also we have for our thrift store, if you want to donate to that for any type of clothes items, you can come and drop it off. All of that, anything that we generate out of that goes right back into our social services. And so it still helps both communities, all the communities in the surrounding area. And so we also, for any burnouts, fires, anyone that needs homeless, we do our best to give back to those that are in need. So I think we average around $1,000 of merchandise, between $800 and $1,000 of merchandise that goes through our stores, that goes back to those that are in need. We've had a lot of fire victims in the last 6 months, so because of that, we've helped quite a few families. So.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
very
no problem.
much.
You're welcome.
Jill.
I know we're running long. My name is Jill Ramelot, R-A-M-E-L-O-T, and today I'm representing as a volunteer publicist for River Fund. I just wanted to remind you all that River Fund got a grant from Caesars Foundation a couple months ago of $15,000 for a Laughlin resident-only specific community social services fund. The money only goes to Laughlin residents. They've only had this for about 3 months, and they've already run through half the money. Almost $6,000 has been given out to Laughlin residents to help them with emergency and crisis situations. We are starting a campaign to try and collect donations from the community to make this a self-sustaining fund. On the riverfundinc.com website, there's a button where you can click and donate directly to the Caesars Laughlin Community Social Services Fund. The money only goes to Laughlin residents. So I just wanted to remind you all, we're going to be making some flyers and signage that we wanted to send out to local businesses, because if we could just get a couple $100 a month from each of the large businesses, a couple $100 a year from each of the large businesses in town, could keep this fund going in perpetuity. So I just wanted to remind you all we have it. I know Mike Connor was here a couple months ago, reminded you, I told you about it when it first happened. But I just wanted to remind you because I'm working with them, and we just added the button to the website, and we are using the Chamber of Commerce's email outlets to get the word out, and we have a sign in the chambers, on the Chamber's TV inside now. We're trying to get the word out that we need donations to keep the fund going. So just go to riverfundinc.com riverfund.com, and you can click the button and donate directly to that fund.
And I believe at least way back when I was with Caesars, which was Harrah's at the time, we were able to give to River Fund directly from our paychecks. So your HR department at Tropicana and at Harrah's, they can select a local charity to donate
Exactly,
to.
and that is something that did decline considerably after all the COVID closures. People had to, apparently, because they closed completely, it was almost like rehires when people came back to their jobs, and so they had to restart their River Fund donations. And a lot of people didn't or didn't know about it, so we are hoping to get more employees to sign up, because employees who donate, that money goes into a special fund, which means if it's an employee, it's called the Employee Donor Crisis Fund. If employees donate and they have a large problem, as Captain John mentioned, something terrible happens and they need a new home or whatever, they get first priority from those funds. So if you are a donor, an employee donor, and you need help, all you have to do is come in and you get special dispensation because you've been a donor and a supporter of River Fund. So
That's nice.
anyone who is an employee should consider donating. I know my kid went to work at one of the casinos and the first thing he did was sign up. I of course, pushed him that way, but you know, and if you're considering donating money, that's a good way to do it. It goes only to the communities in our area. It's locals helping locals. So everyone should consider riverfundinc.com.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you. I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting
This
adjourned.
is our longest meeting ever that I've had, isn't it?